Today's character design is Armor from the X-Men, also known as Hisako Ichiki. The general idea is, of course, she would be a Vanguard. The overview is as follows. The Vanguard designed around the armor mechanic from Overwatch, following the concept of auras not being solely a support thing, such as Storm's aura. She would be a pseudo diva like character where the armor acts as a separate health pool. However, unlike diva, it will be where it's not ultimate based, it will instead be ability slash time based, would be the general idea. What this looks like is you play as Hisaka, the like a small girl character model at base. She has a weaker version of the kit and is more agile and somewhat DPSy. But what truly makes her a tank is her like passive assault slash her E ability, which allows her to don the armor. When donning the armor, her hitbox becomes closer to the size of the Hulk, as her psionic armor envelops her. While in this form, you have various buffs to her abilities, as well as a extra 400 HP that benefits 100% of the aura's effect and damage resistance. The 400 HP acts like a threshold between her armored form and her base form, very similar to Diva, where whenever all of Diva's health disappears, you then become the baby Diva. Except in this case, instead of it like uh, having this like demeching phase, it's almost like a shield breaking where it has like this like maybe shatter effect, and then she is stuck with her lower HP for a little bit, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So 400 extra health maybe doesn't sound like a whole lot, but once you understand the damage resist mechanic that my idea involves, as well as her base health, of course, even though it's technically separate, it still is more or less enveloped, especially with how consistently she'll be able to get that 400 health back by herself. We'll get more into that whenever we discuss the Dawn ability, as it's called. So first, I wanted to go over Hisako Ichiki. The base character is a 200 health character with a very small hitbox, and as mentioned, most of her abilities are more or less similar versions of her armored form, but slightly weaker. So her primary is a infinite, um, small ranged, wave like psychic energy. It creates these like armored ring-like waves that would go in front of her. Whenever she smaller form, these waves travel a little bit faster, but and do a little less damage. But the main mechanic behind this is that they almost act like a melee that travels 10 meters, but somewhat slowly. Of course, in her smaller form, it will be a bit faster. Her right click is more or less called Small Needle, um, which is a 2 charge ability with 3 second cooldowns in between. It could reasonably be 2 seconds as well, depending on how these abilities work. But the way that it would work would be kind of similar to Mei from Overwatch, where there's like a bit of a charge up before it shoots out. And the difference, however, is this one would be hit scan. Essentially, the base idea is that this hit scan projectile would do like 75 damage and can hit headshots with a 1 second interval in between shots and a uh, 0.5 second charge. The reason with the 1 second interval is so you can't just mash both of them real fast. The general idea with this is that this is your main way to reduce your Dawn ability, which is more or less how she ends up being a tank character. We're going to skip over her shift real quick because that will be more important later, as well as her E, and go over her F ability. The F ability is just a small addition to her kit. In the case of her baby form, she gets the small boost, a 10-second recharge ability that while demech, rather than what she gets in the mech, she gains a quicker and more agile boost that like jumps into the air almost, depending on maybe like where you're looking, almost like a Inviswoman jump. And the idea is it would give you a speed boost. This is just like a little added bonus to her kit to help her stay alive a little bit, feel a little more DPS-y, while she doesn't have the armor and a tanky ability. Moving on to her E, this is her main mechanic, is Dawn. It's at base a 20-second cooldown, and it could reasonably be longer or shorter depending on how it actually looks in game. But the general idea is this is a ability that you in combat you will have to activate, but if you don't take damage for a certain amount of time, it will just like automatically activate. But that is more or less one of her passives, is that this ability activates even on cooldown after not taking damage for a certain amount of time. Something like 10 seconds would make the most sense. Essentially, though, this is the way to put on her armor form and get that extra 400 health while in her small form. It would probably be like a pretty instant get bigger type ability. But now going back to the shift ability, armor shift, as I'm calling it, allows you to shift between the modes of damage resist and that her aura gives. The idea with this is, as mentioned, it follows a similar logic to the armor from Overwatch. So at base, she'll have two versions of armor: orange armor and purple armor. They both have different use cases, and work more effectively against other things. So instead of it just being flat damage resist, you would have these other two options. Of course, you could easily make a third aura that is just a flat damage resist, but I thought it would be cool to have like one that's more effective against like shotguns and the other one be more effective against like slower single target things. But in this case, the idea is orange armor reduces damage by a flat 7, like in Overwatch, reducing it to a minimum of 1, making it extremely effective against shotgun style attacks, but not as effective against like single target attacks like Hela. The purple armor, however, would do the inverse, where it, as funny as this sounds, it will grant you a 50% damage reduction to the percentage of instances of damage, meaning if you take 100 damage from one bullet, you take 50. While in contrast, a shotgun blast that does a total of 100, but does 10 per bullet, the 50% would only affect half, meaning you would take 75. It's a weird way of doing it. I'm no mathematician. There could be a better way to do this, but this was like my main idea for how you could implement a inverse effect of the orange armor from Overwatch. The last one, even though I said there was only two, the last idea I had is actually in relation to something we'll talk about later, but it's green armor. For now, I'll let you sit and think about what that could be. The armor mode now has at least as of currently, the idea is 400 HP. And as mentioned, it gets actually, let me take a quick step back. So to go over, the idea is she has a small aura, that is 8 meters at base. The idea is everybody in the area, your teammates, get a smaller portion of the effects mentioned in the armor shift section. They may not get the full or 50% damage reduction to the percentage of instances of damage type of thing, but they maybe get like 30% of like that or something. Either way, it's like something that passively buffs your team if they play close enough to you. The idea is that it would be pretty small, about 8 meters though, so it would have to be a pretty brawly comp to say the least. The reason that this is important is because the baby armor, or baby demect Hisoka, she gets the same effect that her teammates get. So she doesn't get the 100% effect of this armor aura, and she only has 200 HP, which makes her a bit squishy. Of course, she almost has to be if she's going to passively always have this damage resist, even if it is only a portion of it. Nonetheless, when activating her Dawn ability, her E, she gets the armor mode. The armor mode more or less is what the character is at base. Like, if you're going into a fight, this is what you're going to be like looking like. It adds 400 HP that all takes 100% of the armor's aura effect. So consistently always having damages. So even though it's only 400, that makes her about a 600 health character with a 400 that she can consistently gain back with the Dawn ability in Baby Diva form, or Baby Hisoka form, as well as the damage resist, which effectively, even though she's only got 600 total health mathematically, she will be a pretty tanky tank by more or less gating health consistently and constantly having some sort of damage resist. Nonetheless, the idea is primary is more or less the same. It's called large wave, just to keep it simple. It creates these larger rings that have a bigger area of effect. Again, the general idea is that they are slow moving rings, almost like clouds of smoke made from her psionic energy that kind of slowly move forward and maybe do like a sort of like tick damage as people stay in that like area. As well as, again, similarly, the important part is that these shield poke. This almost makes her like a Ramatra style character playing somewhat brawly, even though the idea is that they would travel up to 10 meters. It would more or less be a punch that has like a delayed, slow moving projectile. Again, her right click, keep it simple, large needle. This time it gets an extra charge, and similarly, it reduces the cooldown of your E ability because your E ability does change. Of course, since you're in your bigger form, it does do a little bit more damage, probably like 85. Not much, but just a slight little boost. Encourage you to stay in your armored form. The shift stays exactly the same. I think I forgot to mention, so I'll go ahead and mention again. The shift will be like storms, where you click shift and it switches between them, but it has like that like 2-3 second cooldown in between. Then moving on to her E ability, Dawn. Even though she has the Dawn ability that puts on the armor, while in the armor form, her Dawn ability gets a new function. And again, similar to before, it is a staple of her kit, creating a with a 15-second cooldown. The idea is that it is a small shield that is about 200 HP. It would maybe be big enough to kind of cover her team, but not like strange size big. After the shield's activated, you get a boost to your armor aura, causing it to expand for 5 seconds. It would be a small boost, but I mean, on a ability that effectively allows you to a 2 meter increase, making it like a 10 meter aura for a couple of seconds, feels reasonable to me. This ability is kind of like a two-parter though, because it, like as mentioned, it creates the shield, and the shield is health based, but the secondary boost aura is cooldown based. So the idea would probably be that like it's similar to how the E is with its like passive, it'll activate even whenever it's not on cooldown. The E can still be used. You just won't get the boost part of it for the 15 seconds, but you can use the E as long as you have the shield like generated. Maybe with like a short like 3-5 second cooldown, something like that, just to like keep it to where you don't like put up the shield as soon as it has 15 health or something like that. Nonetheless, the last ability is the boost. Unlike the others, we are not calling it big boost because it doesn't do a particularly big boost. All it does is give you a slight lunge in a direction, creating a shockwave that like slows enemies. This is kind of like the bread and butter of this character is to kind of like slowly close the gap. Very brawly character with like her shield and her damage resist, while maybe giving a couple pop shots with her right click, which are like the needle projectiles. And then whenever you close the gap, you can start doing your wave attacks that are slow moving. And to keep targets from just getting out of your range or getting away from them too fast, you use your boost to occasionally slow them. Otherwise, in terms of her passives, the main one is obviously the armored aura, 8 meter aura, and a 10 after you use her E ability in armored form. This one is debatable, but very possible she would have a movable object, or at the very least inside of her armored form. And then the last passive, of course, is that her Dawn ability in little form activates even if it's on cooldown after you don't take damage for a certain amount of time. her ultimate ability. So this one's interesting. The ultimate is going to be called Apex Armor. The general idea with this is you grow in size and health effectively, being a mobile shield for your team, almost like a Susanoo from Naruto. Your teammates can enter the area the armor covers as her actual body acts like a shield. Being such a large target, she would likely gain like a ton of health. So she would have some like 1500 health that follows whatever aura she's using. Her armor would like cover the aura area, so it'd be like an 8 meter like area of like just shield that moves with her. But her aura also grows, so even if you're not fully in the shield, the aura becomes 15 meters, making it very big, ensuring that your entire team is more or less in your aura after activating your ult. Her primary attack attacks slower but has bigger damage, and instead of it just going through shields, it also creates like an almost shield like projectile that blocks attacks in front of you. This ultimate is like a transformation ultimate. It's hard to say exactly how long it would last, probably 8-10 seconds. Seems pretty standard, I feel, especially since it could theoretically die pretty fast since it does only have 1500 HP. Of course, on top of the damage resist, that could take a little while to kill. So obviously, it's one of those things that would have to actually be tested before I say for sure if that's a good number. But for now, that's what we'll say. A transformation ability that creates a mobile shield for your team, as well as a increase to her aura size and a slight adjustment to her primary fire, making it almost like being able to create mini Groot walls in a sense that like push forward on their own, but they also do like maybe bigger tick damage or the like. In the end, though, that's the entire concept of armor that I have. I wanted to make it like very unique, but play onto some aspects that I've already seen in these types of games, such as the Baby D.Va, but I making it unique to where it's not just I click Q and I'm back in my mech type thing. Lastly, I kind of wanted to go over some fun ideas I had, as I mentioned before, in the shift ability, armor shift. There's one more armor, green armor, that I had in mind. This would be a gamma team up. I know. Gamma team ups tend to be overpowered, with maybe the exception of Black Panther. But this one would be an interesting one because I had realized while making the first two that there is many ways that damage is done in the game, and it made me realize that even though Scarlet Witch, for example, isn't broken, her damage is very different than Hela or a shotgun style like Human Torch. It's like almost like a tick damage. And though there's not much tick damage in the game, this one may not be particularly great in the long run. But the green armor, the gamma armor aura would be, it's like an additive armor option that ramps up. So first and foremost, since it is a team up thing, it'll have a reasonably long cooldown, probably like 20 seconds, lasting maybe like 5 to 10 seconds. And so the idea is to make it relatively strong. The idea is for it to be a additive armor that ramps up the more damage you take. It like starts at like a very low 10% damage resist, and each tick of damage per second, it goes up by 1. So it doesn't like by 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but in a game where there's so much damage flying around, and again, there's not a whole lot of tick damage, but with the occasional thing of tick damage, or at least damage over time, areas like Inviswoman's shift, it eventually can ramp up to 75% pretty fast. That's why I would probably say it would last maybe like at least 10 seconds, but with a 20-second cooldown, probably. So theoretically, after clicking it, you would have to wait 30 seconds to use it again. The next team up idea I had was called Flashing Armor. You'll notice a bit of a pattern. I would love to see more tank team ups. So this one is with Emma and Armor, both psychic users, and also from the X-Men. I felt it fitting. The concept here is that Armor gets a little bit extra health and armor health, so that would probably make her like base form 225 and her big form maybe 425 or something like that, giving her a total of like 50 health. But Emma, however, would get the Armored Diamond ability. while in diamond form, she gets a second kick option that creates a like armored wall behind them whenever she kicks for a split second. So it doesn't last long, but and if it does, it could reasonably be like a little like almost mini Groot wall in a sense, where it has like a little bit of health that they gotta shoot. But adding another shield to her could be kind of crazy. Then again, they did it with the Luna team up, so who knows? The idea though is that the kick would do reduced damage since it like guarantees push them into the wall. Obviously, it guarantees the like little stun whenever you hit the wall, and it cuts off heals for a little bit. The last one is just kind of a funny, somewhat goofy idea in a sense, and it's called Armor, you say? And this team up is with Iron Man. It would give Iron Man 25 extra health. That 25 extra health always gains the benefits of the armored aura. So that way he doesn't necessarily fully have to play with her, but it is only 25 extra health, so it's not like a crazy bit to his team up. But Armor gets the ability to fly. It would probably work very similar to Doctor Strange, where it's like it moves somewhat slow. It's not necessarily fast, but it does get her around places and to high ground since she doesn't fully have high ground ability. Overall, that is the concept for Armor. A diva like brawly character that focuses on giving the team a damage resist, and not just any damage resist, but unique damage resist based on the situation. Whether your enemy has more shotgun style characters or single target damage characters, you can get different auras for different situations. Of course, in tandem with that she also has a shield ability that allows her to help close gaps, a hit scan ability that allows her to at least somewhat deal with flyers and to deal with characters at a bit of a range. But between its cooldowns and its rate of fire, it's not necessarily a primary option. Her primary is a short range, wave like projectile that does a bit of tick damage with characters inside and passes through shields, making her an excellent brawl character, almost like Ramatra in that sense. With her boost ability being more focused on a slight debuff to help keep enemies within range. Feel free to join me as my next couple videos will probably be a little discussion about different roles that Cyclops will be, and maybe whether he and what each of those roles could end up looking like. As well as the next concept video I have is I'm still deciding, but it's either going to be Bullseye or Nightcrawler. Both will be fairly interesting to go over, and I'd love to hear your ideas about Armor. If you think I maybe made it too complicated, or if there's like a better way I could go over this, maybe if some visuals could help with specific sections, because I know I had to rely a lot on just explaining it. Just let me know. In the future, I might remake this if I have more time and actually do more art for it. But I hope you enjoyed and have a good one. I said that as a joke because I the game I figure it out, I get A's.